Next slide.
Oops.
So Ricardo will talk about where we see opportunities to use this information.
Well, this what I mean. Also, we took away from it is that this gave us the opportunity of knowing what issues that we can work with those communities are relevant to them. Like 76% stated, pest management was one of the opportunities that we have to bring them science-based information. Nutrition, of course, is very important, 78%. And COVID-19, of course, 81%. Some 33% actually, which is very low, if you ask me, knew about UC ANR through Facebook, and 33% through website. Probably that 33% right now is zero because the website isn't working. But anyways, lower than average risk perception of food safety in California was another topic that we can have the opportunity on giving them information about. What actions can we take from here? Well, continue broadcasting. Radio and TV are the main options. Seek grants to funding to expand that outreach. Maximize, improve CEO on our websites. Also, we learned about Wikipedia, that a lot of people base their resources or information on Wikipedia. That's something that probably we need to work on as well, to have a presence from the programs, from ANR, and so on and so forth. And continue to prioritize pest management, nutrition, COVID-19, and food safety content in all our platforms. Seek grant funding, as I said, and vaccination campaign for Mexican indigenous migrants and underserved communities came from a grant that we got, and based on this survey, we have a better concept and idea on how to market it and how to do it. And so that was a great information that we get and gathered by thanks to the survey. And we created 5 different Mexican indigenous languages. I have 2 examples that I would like to share with you. Let me see if I can. This is on one of the languages is Mixteco. Let's see.
Da ami undi kana kung kyung bakuna yo kiwi chinjaw na jibi kun ni chabun takina taun ana jibi shini ta hyun tame kiwa chikiyo iyo shinyu na kanyi mikwe yo so si sa kya chikunya kacha na mikwe so si sa kya chikunya kacha na mi bakuna yo que sa antata kunja na jibi shini ta hyun ta kunja na taun chinje na jibi kun ni chabun kwa kiwa chikyun
vacúnate ya.
That's in Mixteco, and is one of the 5 languages that we work with, and that is for social media. This is for TV, and actually this is for social media and radio, and this is for TV, and is aimed for
La vacuna es rápida y millones de adolescentes en el país ya se vacunaron. Algunos han sufrido breves reacciones secundarias, lo que significa que tu sistema inmunológico está trabajando mientras descubre cómo combatir el virus en tu cuerpo. Estar completamente vacunado significa que reduce la posibilidad de transmitir el COVID-19 a las personas que más te importan, y eso hace que la vida sea más segura para todos. Hazlo por ti, tu familia y tu comunidad. Tú decides.
Vacúnate ya.
La vacuna es rápida.
So basically, those were the main things that we got from the survey, and the information that we utilize for this campaign, and it has been very important to all of us. So that's the presentation. Thank you, guys. Now let's open it for discussion. does anybody have some questions, and anybody has worked with different surveys and would like to share their concepts, ideas, experiences?
Thank you for the presentation, guys. I do have a question. I'm not sure if you mentioned the average age group for the respondents.
It's around 33.
32, 33, I think.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
good.
that was the median age.
Mhm.
You know, I think it's interesting the finding with about social media and television. So there is this, especially for the Latino community, this huge trust, especially in broadcast newscasts. And it's impressive to see how that continues to be the case.
Yes.
I don't know if you could relate that, Ricardo, when we were working at Univision and Telemundo. That was, I mean, that's why that 6 p.m. newscast, 6:30 newscast was so strong. It's just interesting to see that continues. And then also in terms of social media, for Latinos, again, we know that they're highly connected, but mostly it tends to be for like entertainment. I still think that that's an opportunity for us, because the fact that they're on these platforms means that we can, you know, just make them aware that we're also on. And it's still an opportunity, even if they're not necessarily going to, let's say, Facebook and searching diabetes, for example. They go to Google for that, but it's still an opportunity. So I think it's just interesting findings. I love it.
You know, what happened is, especially with Latinos, is both Telemundo and Univision, speaking about TV, they started with a niche. While general market, English media, they were fighting with each other for the whole market. Telemundo and Univision concentrated on that niche, which was the Spanish-speaking Latinos. As the internet came along in social media, then everybody started to get a niche. You know, like Fox is catered to certain type of people, CNN is catered to these other type of people. So Univision and Telemundo were already there. And that's why the loyalty of all the viewers and those who grew up with them, watching from as a kid, remain loyal to those brands. And that's why, you know, always I tell people, know your audience, cater to the specific audience, because that's the way you start creating partnerships and loyalty from those groups.
As a follow-up to that, thanks again, Ricardo and Pam. Do Spanish-speaking audiences go to the websites of Telemundo and Univision the way that English speakers go to BBC News or CNN?
Yes, they do. They do actually, and they visit a lot social media as well. Like for instance, when I was working there, reporters had to do a story, just a story for the newscast, one story for Facebook, social media, with a short one, and another for the website. It was 3 stories, probably a little different angle, and the time was different as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I find it interesting that the internet it continues to be a really important go-to source of information. I'd love to see kind of the follow-up being what specific sites, especially the Black community, go to in contrast to other audiences, for example.
That was one of the questions that I had when I saw the results of the survey, because I read internet, but for a lot of Latinos, they don't differentiate between internet and Facebook.
Right.
I mean, Facebook is internet.
Right.
So I'm not sure if what they meant was I gather my information through Facebook rather than internet as such, you know.
Or YouTube, because they searched the YouTube video.
Yes.
Mm.
Because I mean,
What I do know the community doesn't do on social media, as well as other communities, is search, for example, hashtags linked to nutrition and use that on Instagram in that manner, for example. That's not as common. I think we'll get there with the younger generation, but for the older generation, they're not using those search techniques as well as other communities, right? They're also not necessarily searching keywords on Facebook. They're finding information on Facebook through pages they follow, but they're not doing keyword searches, which is what everyone else is doing. And that's kind of, getting rid of that gap between traditional search engines like Google and social media.
I'm really happy to find out that nutrition is one of the topics. They are really high interest in, because for a long time and us, we have been working a lot in this topic, and nutrition and food insecurity, and especially when the 30 years with the radio, the broadcasting radio that we were producing since the first generation. Something else I find interesting is, for example, yesterday I was reading a newspaper about the COVID. COVID is a different, in some way, a different story, because there is a lot of distrust, the people on the vaccines, and they say in San Diego, in a case in San Diego, the way they were very successful to make the people get the vaccines was with the help of promotoras, people who they went with visiting people sometimes in their houses, and it's people who the community are trusting in them, and that makes a big difference. And then in San Diego, Latinos are one of the highest groups with getting vaccines now.
Amazing.
How long ago did you guys did this survey? Because one of the slides you say that if they will have the COVID vaccine, if it was available.
It was during March and early April.
Okay. I was just wondering because of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it was early in the rollout. One
So
thing I
even
wanted
though-
to add, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Pam, even though we did find that those Facebook ads worked well, there's definitely, that knowledge that tells us we need to also distribute it another way, because then, we're going to, as you mentioned, be a little biased towards how people think and answer the questions about social media.
Right. I just wanted to let you know that under the UC Global Food Initiative, we have a GFI fellow who's going to be working on communications with us, with Stratcom. And one of the main activities we're going to have him do is put together a campaign based on the results of this survey and try to target the Latino and Black communities with some of this information about nutrition, pest management that we know that they're looking for from a trusted source. Evie, do you have anything that you're targeting these audiences that maybe we could help you with?
Yeah, I'm sort of trying to figure out how this fits into our work. So one of the projects that we're working on right now is sort of trying to understand what the information needs are for farm workers in working in orchard systems, and then communicate, in a way that is accessible for them. And so getting some of this information, about how social media and internet communication and stuff like that can be used in Latino communities might apply to the work that we're doing. So yeah, I guess that's one thing. We're also, I was wondering, so I run the social media for our team, and we have a blog that we're working on as well. And I've been trying to get up to speed on how to improve SEO for our website and stuff like that. And so I was going to ask if y'all are aware of it. I see that there are some resources on the ANR site that I can't access obviously right now, but I'm wondering if you guys have other resources about how to improve SEO for things like blogs and stuff like that.
Linda, do you want to answer that question? Because that's something we're trying to do for the whole ANR website.
Yeah, I think we'll be in a much better position for search ranking when we have our new, fantastic, well-tagged, unified environment. So it's just a waiting game at this point. But there are some things you can do to optimize now. I'm sure you're aware of some of the basic things you can do to keywords. It's all about keywords and making sure that the keywords are reflective of the actual content, that you're not keyword stuffing.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Evie, because I think SEO is gold, really, and I think the survey results emphasized that fact, showing how these audiences really rely on Google search to bring up the relevant information that they need. At UC Davis Health, the communications team had a dedicated person looking at Google Analytics, looking at the metrics, and then coming up regularly with SEO enhancing tactics. It's something that we were regularly briefed on. And so if we ever have the resources to invest organizationally in a SEO specific person, that would be a major boon to our work, I think, if we can get that in the pipeline somehow, because yeah, it's quite evident, and we know from just our everyday internet lives that Google and search engines are how we find stuff. Some of the kind of general recommendations that the UC Davis Health expert had was, again, adding those keywords into headlines, but also adding keywords into subheads within a longer piece, and actually having subheads within a longer piece. Those search engines don't just search the main headline tag, but also those subheads. So breaking up that content in that way helps with SEO ranking.
Evie, and that's also for social media. I mean, now social media is, as you know, coming up in the search engine searches, especially Twitter conversations. And the algorithms for Instagram are going to push up your content if you hit those keywords.
I want to circle back to
guess,
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm doing a new topic, so go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I just had a clarifying question about, I've been trying to Google around and kind of understand, having no communications background whatsoever, how you identify what keywords are going to actually be effective for reaching the audience that you're trying to reach. Does someone have some quick way that that I can look for that, or a resource I could look up about how to identify what keywords are appropriate, I guess?
I can send you info for social media.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks, Ross.
Or you can do things just like you look for the popular YouTube videos in your category and see what those titles are and see what their keywords are, and just like sort of imitate the winners.
There's also some free tools out there. I think Google has one, and Moz, M-O-Z, has a keyword tool. But what I wanted to say earlier, I want to come back to Mike's point about it'd be nice if we could dig further into the types of websites folks are visiting. And it got me to thinking, there's a lot of existing research on these communities, and we should probably take an action item to go out and look at the Pew Research Center and other resources. I was just Googling right now, and I stumbled on an article that says, from Pew, that says Black Americans have less confidence in scientists to act in the public interest. So I'm sure there are other really interesting studies that are related to our topic of inquiry. Maybe we could take a look and kind of try to get a better handle on some of those secondary findings.
Yeah, for Latinos, there's a couple of them. I mean, the one that has the reputation and the credibility, of course, is Pew. But there's two more that I always follow, and when I'm trying to do presentations and things like that. But they're
What are they?
I can't remember that. One is Latino Policy Institute. I'm not sure if that's the name, but I'll share the links with you guys. Once again, one of them, there are three, as I said. One of them is more like immigration and that kind of topics, and the other one is political, but also the issues that affect the Latinos. Where Pew is more in the middle. That they really don't have an agenda, but they do give you a good analysis of what they're doing, those studies. The other two have a little bit of an agenda, but once again, is worth looking at.
I was surprised that 3/4 of the respondents were immigrants. I don't know if that would affect the way we try to reach them or where we try to reach them, but
Well, what we learned is that they were not born in the States, but we didn't know what age they came in here. Because one thing is that we're not born in here, but if you came to the States when you were 9 months old or 1 year old, definitely your mentality is going to be 100% American.
that's true.
And that might have to do, again, because most of the respondents came from Facebook, those Facebook ads.
Yeah. So another thing but this is very with Latinos. I don't know with African Americans. We're very loyal to brands. I mean, anything that people use the same soap that their parents use, and the parents use it because they use in their house when they were kids. So I mean, there's a lot of, and that has been wonderful for a lot of companies that they had brought in their products from Mexico here, and they had been booming. There's a lot of supermarkets, a lot of things that they only sell products from Mexico because people want to buy those. They're loyal to those, and they have the same things or better in here, but is the loyalty.
And that works in our favor because there's a lot of good thoughts going to the UC system, and we're part of that. So we need to, for the Latino community, we need to tie in that we are part of this broader system that they respect and aspire to belong to as well.
And that's why, for instance, I always use, like, for Hispanic Heritage Month, a little slogan like "Celebrando Juntos," celebrating together. I always is like including the rest of the community in everything we do. And once you gain their trust, I mean, really, very loyal. It's very hard. But the problem is, if you promise something that you're not going to fulfill, then you lost that trust, and that's the end of it.
Well, that seems like it would point to partnering with the community organizations that they already trust and associate with.
Exactly. That's why, when I give talks or some workshops, I always say partner, especially with churches.
Oh.
Because once you have the blessing of the priest or the pastor of the minister, they believe you. They believe 100% in you.
Ricardo, following up your point about brand loyalty, do people who watch Telemundo only watch Telemundo, or do they go back and forth between the two, and how do the demographics break down? Are there a certain type of person who watches one as opposed to the other?
From every 10 viewers, Univision has 8.
Wow.
And Telemundo has 2 or 3. That's the proportion. As new generations come, Telemundo is gaining more viewers because they are producing more things here for in the United States for Mexican Americans. They even do shows on bilingual shows, and so it's a little different where Univision is catered to with the programming from Mexico, and they do very little programming local here in the States, except for news or news content shows. However, because Univision started like 15 years earlier than Telemundo, they have the loyalty of the viewers, of the communities. They remember that the ones when nobody give them, the time of day, Univision was there with them. They contributed to their local parades and festivities, and they were there to cover their events and so on and so forth. So that is embedded now in there.
There's an industry joke that folks only go to Telemundo News when there's soccer on Univision, and that's how they get the ratings for the month. Of course, that's not true, but that's how they paint the picture.
Would you say the younger generation gravitates more to Telemundo?
Yes and no. Well, yes, because Telemundo now part of Universal is part of NBC and have all the resources to tap into the Latinos who do not speak Spanish. And actually, NBC local news is catering more towards those communities because they know, especially in the states like California, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, that's the future. So they're tapping more into that, tapping more and aiming to serve more of those communities. But once again, Telemundo is very strong from 25 or 35, I should say, to 65. Right now, the average age of Latinos is 25, 27. So it changes, and I think it's going to change a little bit, but not to the point on which Univision is going to feel that they're out of the game. I don't think that's going to ever happen. Univision tried to partner with ABC, with Mickey Mouse, and they did a couple of shows in English aimed to the Latinos through ABC and so on and so forth. It really never took off. They spent a fortune trying to tackle the social media business, and they lost a lot of money. They still have that. What is it? What was the name? Oh gosh, I can't remember it right now. But it was a platform that it was very strong with English speakers. Then they bought it and they did it both English and Spanish, and it just went down. Latinos were not buying it because they didn't have the Univision, even though they have the same talent. They were looking at the newscast. They didn't have Univision branding. It had another different name, like 365, something like that. I can Zone, or I can't remember the name. Fusion. That's the Fusion. That's it. That's what it's called. It's still alive, but it was a big, not successful, and lost some money for Univision. And also, it was a lesson for the rest of the media that probably they were looking wrong at the Latino community, thinking that because they were on social media, they were going to capture the market, because they didn't.
And, I think the opportunity there is
We
still,
have. TV is over in all the categories that we were looking at, is number 1 or 2 above social media.
and I think the opportunity there for the younger generations is that brand recognition for Univision and for Telemundo, because those younger folks are still following, like we mentioned, the websites and going on social media and interacting with them in that way. So, for example, we follow reporters in Spanish belonging to these networks on Twitter and interact with them as well, because again, they're kind of like the vehicle of information, and they're being followed by a younger generation, especially on Twitter.
Are there a lot of people on Twitter who are,
For these networks, for these reporters?
yeah, are the Latino community members following the reporters on Twitter?
Yes, they are. Absolutely. Yeah. Not as much as the other platforms, but yes.
Okay, so if they did a story quoting us and tweeted it, that would get us some visibility.
Absolutely, especially if it's a national reporter. And that's something that I think both Ricardo and I have been thinking about and seeing how we, the first thing they're going to ask you is, do you have, I'd love for Univision to be able to do a wildfire special featuring our experts. But the first thing that's going to come out of that reporter and producer's mouth is, who do you have that has perfect Spanish? Who is your Lenya, who's going to walk us through and give us the visuals in perfect Spanish? Because they don't want to do the voiceover,
okay.
Especially for something on a larger scale. So that's sometimes where we, I think we need to work better at providing, experts who are fluent.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I in 2015 was doing Pope coverage out of Cuba and in New York with the main anchor, we were updating everyone via Twitter, not necessarily Facebook, because it was kind of, every half an hour we had an update as to what the Pope was doing.
Any other thoughts on how we can use this data?
So
Linda, I was kind of curious about the campaign for the indigenous Mexicans. How do you know what percentage of the population speaks those indigenous languages?
I don't know. I think it's somewhere in Ricardo's research, though. I think he might be dealing with his
Yeah, flooding.
But yeah, he's got that figure, I think.
just for reference, is there because the survey again highlights how expert opinions really matter, do we have on hand like a Spanish speaking expert list?
We used to, I think. Miguel, do you guys still keep a running track of who speaks Spanish in ANR?
I believe there is a list, but it has to be updated. It's one of those things that you put it off to the side, and then you have to come back to it and just update it.
To Dora's point, do you have a designation for people who are not native speakers versus the native speakers?
Well, last week we spoke with a gentleman who works with these communities, and he broke down a little bit of like what indigenous people are in certain areas, and then the fact that even if one language is the same, like Mixteco, there's different variations of it. So what he suggested was find who in your community what they're speaking, and if that's the biggest group, try to cater to them. So it's one of those things. We do have that information, but Ricardo has that information that he could provide to you guys, so you guys could see a little bit of what the breakdown was. It was a very good presentation that this gentleman did. I'm sorry, I just lost his name, but it was a really informative presentation where he broke everything down in the state of California, who's in what area and what parts or regions from Mexico they come from. Some from Oaxaca, some from Michoacan, and different, even if they're both speaking Mixteco, if they're from different regions, they might not understand each other. So that has a lot to do too when you're looking for somebody, to cater to a different group. Or you have to find out what language it is that they speak, and try to, get somebody who speaks that language, not just think that one person who speaks Mixteco is going to work for everybody. It's not. So yeah, Ricardo has that information, but pretty sure as soon as he's available, he could provide that.
If I remember well, he mentioned in Mexico there are 68 different language, something like that. That means
Wow.
it is. I think it is difficult to know exactly how many languages are here from Mexico here in California. In Mexico, there are 68.
Are there also indigenous languages for South America?
No, just from Mexico. Just from Mexico. There are a lot different languages from South America. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't want to overwhelm everything, so we just did Mexico. Because if we did the rest of Latin America, there would be a lot more that we really couldn't handle everything right now. So we did Mexico.
That makes sense. Yeah, that is a good idea to add it to the media website.
These languages that Ricardo that we were working on with the indigenous community are Triqui, Mixteco, Zapoteco. There's 5 different languages that we're working with right now, and that's the languages that he decided to do these PSAs, and we're going to be broadcasting those on radio. And we got this gentleman's I forget his name. I'm really sorry. I'll look it up and I'll let you guys know what his name was. And he's the one who oversaw this translation of the article or the PSAs that we needed. He's the one who oversaw all that, and just with different parts of areas, the people that we wanted to reach out to. So we still have to see what the turnout is going to be, what kind of data we could get from that.
Are you thinking of Arsenio? Miguel?
Yes.
Yeah, Arsenio.
Thank you. I just didn't know that was the one.
Well, HR has started asking all new hires if they speak other languages. And maybe for our media website, we actually used to keep an experts list with parentheses around other languages that they spoke, because we have Chinese TV stations in LA and San Francisco that could probably use that information too. So maybe that's one thing we can do, is try to upgrade our experts list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that, just upgrading the list is something that we should do maybe every 6 months or so, because we're always getting people who come and go. So I think that's a good idea to just keep updating that more often.
The rainy day project, but there are no rainy days.
I see clouds.
A cloudy day project. And I think that's a great idea. I mean, maybe sending even an email with a link to our website containing that information to the assignment desk. Because, I remember producing out of LA and thinking, oh, I need an expert in something. Let me look at UCLA. But who is really maybe saying, well, UCANR is filled with experts. So just make them aware that we also have, maybe we could add a list of for Spanish of people like Samuel Sandoval who have perfect Spanish and are really great on camera. And that would be another part, right? It would be the training that we would have to provide for them to be able to speak well on camera, which is another issue, right? Not just that they know the subject, but give them pointers on that.
Right, because there are a lot of people who are comfortable talking to print reporters, but not on camera.
Right.
That's something we are going to be doing, some media training.
Yeah, well, that's something you just got to be nice about it. And before you put the camera up, just start talking with them as you're setting up the camera. And before you know it, they'll say yes, and you'll have everything on camera that you need.
They always say the good sound bites before the camera is rolling, though.
Well, that's why you start talking about something else.
Yeah.
also, how's the weather? Oh my God, it's so nice. So, I like what you said here. I like what you said there. What do you think about this? You know what? I like chocolate cake. Whatever it is, just talk about something else to kind of get the break the ice. So then as you're setting up, oh, don't worry, this is just a little camera. You're just going to be talking to me, forget about the camera, and then you just do that. And always keep make eye contact and keep that eye contact. Because if you break that eye contact, you might lose the person. So always right here, look at me. and you feel make them feel more comfortable. And yeah, before you know it, they'll tell you their life story. And you'll have it on camera. Just make sure that you are recording and they are mic'd up. But it's all on the approach too. Yeah, sometimes you'll say you'll come and ask, can I do an interview with you? They'll be like, no, I don't think so. Me, camera, my voice, I don't like this, I don't like that. Just talk to them. Talk to them as they're your friends, and before you know it, okay, fine. There they are.
And also once the person is willing to be in front of the camera, which is the main factor, and then we'll find any excuse as I'm not wearing the right lipstick, or I didn't do my hair the way I normally do. But once you have it in front of any camera, whether it's your iPhone or professional camera, and you see that you need to move the person or ask the person to move to another side, do it. From that moment on, you're in control of the situation. Don't be shy, and try to have the best shot that you can, and also that your subject looks the best. Sometimes there's wind, the hair goes all the way everywhere. Let's make the person feel comfortable, and at the end result, they will be happy with the results.
So while you were away, we were talking about updating our experts list to indicate who speaks a foreign language, and training those people that we need to be spokespeople.
Yeah, I agree. I saw what Linda wrote. Sorry for not being here all the time. I just was dealing with the plumber. But yeah, no, I think that's very important to have, and also to train the academics to be in front of the camera. I mean, some of them really, they're hard. I think they're getting more used to with Zoom, because now everybody's in front of a camera. But I mean, there are times in which it's very, very difficult to have a person in front of the camera.
Well, it looks like we're coming up on the hour. Anybody else have ideas for our campaign to target Latino and Black Californians?
Just real quick, Ricardo, there was a question about the indigenous languages, and if we have like a certain breakdown of what people are in what areas. And I mentioned a little bit of Arsenio. I had forgotten his name though.
Yeah, there are 17. Basically, they're Mixteco, Zapoteco, Purépecha, Mixteco, Zapoteco, Triqui, and those are from Oaxaca. Purépecha is from Michoacán, and each one of them has at least 5 or 6 variants depending on the region. Mainly the ones we have here are Mixteco from certain region of Oaxaca, and in the urban areas like LA, they speak more like Triqui, which is another area of Oaxaca, and then even those have 2 or 3 different variants. So I mean, unless you want really, really to specific work with that specific community, they recommend to do that. That's why I was very eager to partner with MICOP, because they not only have the translators, but they have the sensibility to work with the community, because everybody who's there is from Oaxaca. They either came here as kids or adults or teenagers, but they're culturally exposed to the way they are. And it's hard. I mean, even for us, people who we grew up in Mexico, it's hard sometimes to communicate with them. We need.
What percentage of the Latino population speaks those indigenous languages?
I will say probably 10 to 15% of the population in Mexico are indigenous.
Okay, so it's a significant
Depends on
number.
the region. I mean, like if you go to the peninsula of Yucatan, where the Mayan area, there's still more, and they're still speaking their languages. If you go to the Istmo, which is Oaxaca, Michoacán, Chiapas, they still speak those languages. If you're in the north, the only ones who do it are the Tarahumaras, which is they're in Chihuahua and Durango, and it's a totally different language.
Okay. Well, we're at 11 o'clock. When is our next communicators meeting?
It's the 4th Tuesday of October. Should be like the 26th or 20 something.
Okay.
Speaking to Linda's point that there's a lot of existing research into the trusted news sources for these communities, I wonder if we could do just a little bit of homework and do a little reading of what's out there and then bring some of our key findings to that meeting.
I've been multitasking and bookmarking a ton of stuff from the Pew site, and there's another site I came across called the Collage Group. So yeah, and it's super interesting. I'm really eager to read these articles. So I'll share those links with you guys too.
Great.
We've got to go though. So thanks for a great discussion. Thanks for sharing the results, Pam and Ricardo. And I hope it was helpful to folks, and we will talk again soon.
For the last Hispanic Heritage Month forum, and
yes,
celebrate our peers tomorrow.
That would be great.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
That's all.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye-bye.